TGI Fridays, 3330 Veterans Boulevard, corner of North Holland is our location today. At Fridays, it's always Friday, even on Monday, which it is right now, in the evening. And as always, we're happy to be with you. It's Ken Trahan, sportsNOLAtv. Welcome one and all to another edition of our show. And obviously much to talk about. I guess we could subtitle this show Requiem for a Saints Fan 2011, based upon what happened in the NFC Championship game yesterday, which we'll get to in just a moment. Just another illustration of how dominant the legacy of Bill Belichick and Tom Brady will be for years to come. First tandem to reach 5 Super Bowls together. That's truly remarkable in this day and age of what we'd have to call basically socialist football, where the poor get rich and the rich get poor, if you will. So great job by the Patriots organization to identify a great quarterback in the, 6th round? And here they are so many years later. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLAtv, TGI Fridays, 3330 Veterans Boulevard at North Holland. And we thank Ronnie Bouvier and his fine crew for having us here once again. We were all taken care of. We're suitably fed and ready to feed the monster because Brian Alley Walsh of sportsNOLA.com is here. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you, Kenny. Socialist football. Now, that's a new one. I had not heard that. I thought we would be preparing for the Saints to play in Super Bowl 46 today, and that's not the case.
Well, you did note that I went to you first so you would not be trumped once again by
yes,
my friend.
Thank you, my friend.
You're welcome. Torrance Small, former New Orleans Saints wide receiver, always a pleasure.
Hey, good to see you guys once again. I tell you, man, this weekend takes me back to that old song, "Ain't no sunshine when she's gone." I really got to understand that when we don't have the Saints over the weekend, I tell you.
And we are very blessed to have Brett Martel, the Associated Press, with us. Does a tremendous job covering the New Orleans Saints, covering the New Orleans Hornets, and every other local sports entity. Brett, it's great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us.
All right, good to be here.
Well, there's so much to talk about, and we're going to start with these championship games, Brian, and what transpired. And I don't think we've ever seen a better indication of just how important the third element of the game is, the kicking game. Both games decided by the kicking game. The 49ers are still playing. If Ted Ginn is healthy, there's no doubt the Giants could do nothing against their defense in the second half. And poor Kyle Williams, he not only botched the two, he made a terrible decision on another one in the second half, diving forward to catch a ball. I don't know how he ever caught it, but he did. Bottom line is, we know about Cundiff. It's all about the kicking games.
It really is. And Kenny, we could just go back a week earlier. The Saints and 49ers. The Saints made 2 turnovers on special teams as well. So I tell you what, you're exactly right. If you're going to advance in the one-and-done tournament called the NFL playoffs, you've got to play well in all 3 aspects. And the teams that aren't there now have not played well in special teams in addition to other elements of the game.
Yes. Now, this is how important special teams are. People don't realize your backups. If they're not starting, they have to be great special team guys, and you have to make sure you're bringing in the right guy. Just because a guy can play and catch a few balls in the lineup doesn't mean he's a great special team guy. So that's why it's very important. We have to be very mindful of that when we're talking about which players are going to make this team.
Brett, you never know about the heat of the moment. You see Courtney Roby, a guy who had been there, done that on many occasions, returning kicks, look scared, botch a ball, and then fumble it again on the same play. And then you see Kyle Williams, who clearly was petrified on that field yesterday.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how many reps they really were getting and how well that simulates live game action and big game action. But yeah, in back-to-back weeks, we kind of saw, in close games, all 3 phases obviously matter, particularly special teams in close games. And we saw, a guy who was put in as a substitute make a big mistake in a close game and, led to a loss.
And Brett, really the sad news is, as you look at this game yesterday in the NFC between the 49ers and the Giants, it's pretty obvious that the 49ers didn't play anything like they played against the Saints, that they raised their level significantly and couldn't match that. And I think Saints fans would agree now, the Saints were certainly the best team at that time that they played the 49ers.
Yeah, I think that the Saints, and one of the reasons that there seemed to be so much regret in their postgame is because they knew that they had imploded at an inopportune moment. Just anytime you can turn the ball over 5 times and nearly win the game, you know that you're just a lot better than the other team. And so they would have had a home game this weekend. They kind of dismantled the Giants the last time they faced them in the Superdome, and we could have been talking about them going to Indianapolis.
Yeah, last 2 times they played them in the Superdome, just killed them, took them apart. Giants defense, a bad match for the Saints offense, but that's water under the bridge. Brian, the other thing about these games, quarterback play. Very interesting in my perspective because Eli Manning was better than Alex Smith on balance, but Joe Flacco really outplayed Tom Brady, although the Ravens lost the game.
Yeah, you know, and Joe Flacco had taken a lot of heat, even in his own locker room leading up to the game. And he got off to a rough start, if you remember. I think they were two 3-and-outs automatically, and then he picked it up, and he really played well. And certainly Joe Flacco outplayed Tom Brady, which is one of the surprises of that game as well.
Yeah, I think they helped Flacco out a little bit. They helped him out when they were running the ball on first down every down. It wasn't getting much. Once they started play-action passing on first down, they helped him out and loosened the defense up. He got comfortable, he got relaxed, and he had a much better game. I think he answered the call because he had a hot topic early in the week when they kind of questioned, was he tough enough to play the game?
These defensive lines in these games yesterday certainly were a major factor. Ravens defensive line very good. Wolford had a big game for the Patriots. Both the 49ers and Giants defensive lines were dominant throughout, so they played a huge role in these wins as well. Let's take a look at the matchups. As a result now, you see what happens. Here's your Super Bowl matchup, Brett, as you see it early on. These two teams have played, 3 times in the last 4 years, and each game went down to the wire. The regular season game, when the Patriots were undefeated, they win by a field goal. Then the reverse result in the Super Bowl, and then earlier this year, the Giants win after going scoreless in the first half and winning late again at New England. How do you see the matchup?
Yeah, I think it's a tough matchup maybe for both teams, a really difficult game to pick. The way the Giants have played lately, they seem like they're getting hot at the right time. But the Patriots, they have the right tools to have an answer for a defense like that. I think between their 2 good young tight ends and guys like Wes Welker and Denny Woodhead, as long as they're not turning the ball over like they did yesterday. And again, that's another indication of how good the Patriots are. They overcame turnovers and won at home. And so I think as long as they're not turning the ball over, they can be more competitive with the Giants and maybe a little less surprised by the pressure they're going to get from the defensive front. You have to think, after their experience with the Giants, not only this year, but a couple years ago in the Super Bowl, they're going to have a better plan to deal with that front 4.
Brian, this looks like it comes down to defense for me. Both of these defenses have had issues, but the Giants defense playing better in the playoffs.
Absolutely, and so is New England, Kenny, for that matter. You know, they've only allowed, 20 points in a team the week before to Denver. So, you know, they've done a good job of keeping the ball in front of them, so to speak. The thing that Baltimore did that I think that the Giants can also expose is the running game. The Ravens exposed them, and I think the Giants can do the same thing on Super Bowl Sunday.
That was once they start play action pass. That's how they start getting the running game open. But I'm looking at this game. It's kind of hard to pick right now who's going to come out on top. But the one thing I think is the same as this past week. Special teams is going to dictate this game. Special teams and turnovers. I think both offenses are good enough. If you turn the ball over, they will capitalize on it. They will get points off of it, and it will make it harder to come back.
Here's the beauty of it, Brian. He's been the Giants champion up until now, but because they're playing the Patriots, a team for which he played, he's not willing to stick his neck out for the Giants now. Can you imagine that?
Yeah,
what a politician.
Look at him.
Unbelievable. Are you kidding me?
Now, who are you going to take?
He wears red today because both teams have red in their uniform. Are you kidding me?
And I said that.
Come on, man.
And then I said that.
Yeah.
Look, I love both quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Love both quarterbacks.
Right.
I think this is going to be a game. Come back to me next week, and I'm going to let you know my pick. I've been the prophet lately. I've been the prophet. I've been calling them. The only thing I don't call is the Powerball.
All right.
All right, Prophet. We'll take a time out here. When we resume in just a moment, we'll turn our attention to the New Orleans Saints, and we'll have our fan questions when Sports NOLA TV continues from TGI Fridays on Veterans in Metairie. Our Sports NOLA TV trivia question for this evening. Super Bowl 46 between the Giants and Patriots will be a rematch, of course, of a game played 4 years ago. Our question, how many other Super Bowl matchups have been repeat pairings? Think about it. I can think of a couple. Let's see if you can as well. Identify them and come up with the correct answer to be unveiled a little bit later on in our show. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLAtv, TGI Fridays, 3330 Veterans Boulevard, corner of North Holland, right off of Causeway. Put it in perspective, right across from Lakeside Shopping Center in Metairie. Great food, great lunch specials. Come on over and check it out. We're going to check out the New Orleans Saints now and their free agency situation as we speak. They've already begun addressing it. Brian, as you look at the names on the screen, that's a lot of cake to deal with. How much of it are you going to eat, Brian, from your perspective?
Whoa. Let's see. You've got, what, 13 names there? I would say certainly the top
15, yeah, 15 total.
Right. I would say there's the four on the left: Breeze, Colston, Meacham, and Nix. I'm looking at Jolon Dunbar, Tracy Porter's an iffy, and the rest. Okay, those are my 5 or 6 top free agents that I'm going to address, and that doesn't mean that this team is going to sign everybody, and I don't think they need to sign everybody. A lot of these guys are filler players, for the lack of a better phrase, but there are some definitely marquee guys they got to sign.
Okay, Brett, as you look at that list, do you have an absolute must-have list and an absolute don't-care list?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah.
Among the must-haves would probably be Carl Nix, and the main reason is because of the way their line is built, with the strength of the line being on the inside instead of the outside, being able to hold the front of the pocket, so that the tackles can let the ends just run by the outside and Breeze can step up and throw. And that worked this year better than any passing game has ever worked in the history of the NFL. So I would say that would be number 1, and Colston would probably be number 2.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Beyond that, anybody expendable in your mind on that list?
Yeah, I think, take for example Tracy Porter. He's been a good cover corner. He has not had the big turnovers that we've seen before. And in fact, I think Patrick Robinson, who's a former first-round pick and up-and-coming guy, may be ready to step in and did better in the interception and, in big play area than Porter did this year. So, I think that Saints fans would love to have him back. He'd love to be back being a Louisiana guy with his history as a Super Bowl hero. But we'll just have to see what the market commands for him and whether it's worth bringing him back.
Yes, I think Patrick Robinson played better, but with me, it's 3 guys we have to sign. Colston, we have to sign. Drew Brees, we have to sign. Nix, we have to sign. The rest of them, hey, if we keep some, good. If we don't, but these are must-sign guys here. These are core. That for us, the defense, I don't see anybody we bring back on the defense where we have to have. Jabari Greer might be the only one. Other than that, hey, we have to go out and the field is open definitely on the defensive side.
Well, I certainly believe that the 3 that Torrance mentioned are essentials. I think you got to have Nix and Colston, frankly, moving forward. I know it's an expensive ticket. We'll get into Drew Brees in just a moment, but I just think it's essential based on what the New Orleans Saints do and the package they have with Sean Payton, with Drew Brees. I think they have to have these guys. Certainly the inside players on defense did not provide the pop that you hope for with Rodgers and Franklin, and both as a result are expendable, Brian. They're not necessary.
There's 2 things I just want to add to that. I think Colston's going to command a big penny.
I do too.
Okay, I think, and they better be prepared because he's going to get it somewhere. And I saw 2 teams out there this just Sunday alone, and one of them is San Francisco, could use a Marcus Colston, okay? Mm-hmm. The other guy that I'd like to see them re-sign and get, and I know he's not a marquee name, but is Jolon Dunbar.
Yeah.
I think he is a guy that
he's athletic.
Wears so many hats for this team. I think he's a must to get.
Which brings you to Vilma. I mean, Vilma's future here in New Orleans. I mean, to me, he certainly could be described as expendable, Brett.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was going to say, when I mentioned Nix as number 1, we're assuming that Drew Brees is coming back.
Right.
The coach,
absolutely.
And we'll get to him next.
Brees himself have already said they'd be beyond stunned. But so, beyond that, I think you're right about Vilma.
Yeah.
I would say that he would, if you want to pick out who would be the surprise guy that might get released, it might be him.
Let's take a look at quarterback salaries now to give you some perspective on trying to bring Drew Brees back. Take a look at this because this is what it's going to take, folks. Look at Tom Brady, 4 years, $72 million. The guaranteed money is $48. Peyton Manning, 5 years, $90 million, $69 million in the first 3 years. Michael Vick, 6 years, $100 million, $40 million guaranteed. Just to give you some perspective on what it's going to take to keep Drew Brees. That said, Torrance, it's a no-brainer. They're going to pay him, and he will be here.
We have to pay him. He is the heart and soul of our team. We have to play him. He's our leader. You find a way to work around the salary cap and whatnot. You do what you have to do. You make cuts that you have to make, trades or anything that we have to do in order to get him signed.
Now it is time for one of our favorite segments on the show, our fan questions, where some of our fans get a chance to visit us, visit you, and ask intelligent questions of our panelists, one for each. And our first question is for Brian Alley Walsh. State your name, fire away.
Chantel, I'm from Metairie, Louisiana. My question is, the Saints versus 49ers game, what is it that we could have done differently that the Giants did defensively wise?
The Giants do anything defensively, Brian, that was different than the Saints?
Chantel, excellent question. Outstanding. I know there's going to be a prize for you afterwards. I would say this, that the Giants were able to put a four-man rush, primarily a four-man rush that the Saints weren't capable of doing in order to get to Alex Smith. By putting just a four-man rush, you can put 7 out in coverage for the most part, and you can make the Alex Smith beat you, nickel and dime you. This is what the Saints couldn't do. He was able to beat him, beating pressure or lack thereof on occasion. So I think that just a basic defense, and this is where Steve Spagnuolo could make a difference next year.
Okay, our next question is for Brett Martel, the Associated Press. State your name and fire away.
My name is Gwen Jones, and my question is, watching the game last night with the Giants, do you think if the Saints was playing, we would have beaten them? I think so.
Well, if I had to bet on it, I probably would have taken the Saints, and the reason is because when they played earlier this year, Sean Payton, that offensive line, New Orleans, proved that they had a plan for the Giants' front four, and the Saints would have been at home where they were unbeaten all year, and the last game wasn't all that close, and I think that really the Saints probably were playing better than any team in the NFL, and they kind of imploded in San Francisco. So yes, I think no matter who if they had escaped San Francisco, I think they would have beaten no matter who they played.
All right, our next question is for former Saint Torrance Small. State your name and go right ahead.
Hi, I'm Sadie Boudreau, and I'm from Metairie, and my questions are, what are our drafting needs, and who do you think will get traded?
Oh, great question, Ms. Boudreau. Now, first we have to address some in-house things. We have to sign Drew Brees, we have to sign Carl Nicks, and we have to sign Marcus Coastal. We have to take care of that first. As far as any trades, I don't see if we have any value for any trade unless we get rid of Vilma, unless somebody want him. But he's kind of long in the tooth right now. And for us, our draft, I think we have to go defense. We definitely have to go defense. We're hurting in that department. The new defensive coordinator, Spag, to come in and help us out with that.
All right, and our final question, well, I'll handle that. Go right ahead.
Hi, I'm Stacy from Metairie, and my question is, it looked like Les Miles gave up on Jared Lee this year. Don't you think that would hurt him in his recruiting season?
It's a very good question. I really don't think it's going to hurt them in terms of who they recruit to play quarterback at LSU. I think the bigger concern about recruiting a quarterback is whether or not LSU is going to throw the football more, because if they don't, I think they'll have a tough time getting a pro-type quarterback to come here with the idea that he might only throw the ball 20 times a game. And if that's the case, then clearly they've got an issue. So I think that's probably the bigger item where the Saints, not the Saints, but where LSU is concerned. We'll take a timeout here. When we return in just a moment, we'll put Brian Alley Walsh on the hot seat, all about the Saints and defensive coordinators, when sportsNOLAtv continues from TGI Fridays in Metairie. And our trivia question for sportsNOLAtv this evening, Super Bowl 46 between the Giants and Patriots, will be a rematch game, of course. How many other Super Bowl matchups have been repeat pairings? The answer is 3. Cowboys and Steelers, 49ers and Bengals, who played twice. That might have been the catch. And the Cowboys and the Bills, who played twice. So this will be a 4th, a grand slam, if you will, in terms of Super Bowl rematches. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLAtv, TGI Fridays, Veterans in North Holland. Thanks to Ronnie Bouvier and his crew for having us here once again and supporting sportsNOLAtv and WHNO once more. Time now for our hot seat segment, where we put Brian Alley Walsh on the hot seat and make him squirm a little bit about a particular topic pertaining to local sports. Today's topic surrounds defensive coordinators and the New Orleans Saints. Brian, Greg Williams departing. Saints do not hesitate, and they bring in Steve Spagnuolo. Right move? Could Williams have stayed? Was the hire of Spagnuolo the right move? You're on the hot seat, Brian.
Kenny, I tell you what, I think that there was a time for a change, and I know the question is broached, had the Saints beaten Frisco and maybe moved into the Super Bowl? Of course, you've got to then entertain a different question. No, I don't think so. But the way that they lost, the way that they've lost the last couple of years, they've certainly had an offense that's capable of winning a Super Bowl. Special teams, particularly this year, is one of their best under Sean Payton, the group in general. Defensively, and it's not so much the yards. I know their ranking was 24th or 25th overall. It's not the yards, it's the lack of takeaways, lack of big plays, lack of playmakers on defense. So therefore you go, well, is it the coach or is it the players? I say this, there comes a time when a coach, his message is no longer heard by his players. They brought in Greg Williams to replace Gary Gibbs and change the culture of the defense. He did that. They won the Super Bowl in his very first year as coordinator in '09. They managed it. The last 2 years they haven't done it. I think it was time for a change. And with Steve Spagnuolo, you're going to be able to get more pressure with 4 defensive linemen or a conventional rush. And I think that's the way to go. So I think it's a good move.
Let's look at this. Now, Greg Williams, he did change the culture. He did that. Great job. Let's really look at him. I don't think he did a great job at putting using players to the best of their ability. I think he put them in bad situations, and that's the results that we got. We didn't get the turnovers and all this year. He didn't have the players. He didn't have the talent to do it, but he insists on. He was very stubborn, I thought. I thought he was very stubborn. I thought he was arrogant in some way and continued to do what he normally does without the talent that he needed to be able to do those things that he wanted to do. As far as blitzing, we didn't have the talent to do it, and he insists on trying to do it. I don't think he put the team in a great situation the last 2 years in the playoff. Definitely in the last 2 years in the playoff. I think we had an opportunity against Seattle to blitz. What was the quarterback? Help me out, guys. Hasselbeck. They had an opportunity to blitz him. The only time we blitzed him is those last couple series that we got to him, and they finally got him off the field. We should have been doing that at the beginning of the game.
Let's get Brett's take.
Yeah, will you let Brett speak, please?
Hey,
well, that's a very strong take. It's kind of hard to follow that. But what I'll say is, I just want to be careful about turning Williams into a scapegoat, because the defense did play well for the overwhelming majority of that game in San Francisco, and they kind of imploded in the end. And you can make an argument about the extent to which players deserve some blame, and as well as when players deserve credit, which brings me to the new defensive coordinator and Steve Spagnuolo. I think that he looks like a good hire, and they rushed to hire him after Sean Payton said he would keep an open mind and take his time and consider all candidates. And when he had the Giants' defensive front that performed so well yesterday, he looked like a genius. And he also looked really good against the Saints this year, but overall his defense wasn't dominant in St. Louis the last 3 years. So we're going to have to see how he meshes with the Saints personnel.
I think also Prophet Small.
Yes.
As we're going to call him now, the Prophet Small. And Brett, you guys raised good points. I think also it should be taken into consideration is not only might the message not been heard by players from Greg Williams, but I wonder if there was a little bit of personality conflict between head coach and coordinator. Sometimes you have to break up a marriage at this point, and I really think as much as anything else, it might have been time for a change from the top.
Yeah, and Brett, you bring up a good point, and that's why I'm so strong on my point is, of course, it takes the players. But as a coach, I have to know my players. I have to know what situation I can put certain players in. I don't think Greg Williams did a great job at that. Not this year at all.
I think it's possible that maybe he trusted his players maybe too much in certain critical situations, and like you said, expose them in critical situations to playing towards their weaknesses instead of their strengths. And I also think that Brian is onto something with the personality clash, because Williams was a very assertive person, and Sean also likes to have control.
Time now for a verdict. The judge will render his verdict here. The bottom line is that Steve Spagnuolo was an outstanding hire, and the Saints took the measures necessary to get their man. He was a hot property on the open market who would have been seized by as many as 3 other teams. 3. And for the Saints to be proactive in taking the measures to get him immediately, I think, was an excellent move. Tom Benson is not cheap. Tom Benson has always spent the money to get the resources necessary to win. He did it with Greg Williams, and Sean Payton kicked in a little bit of the money. Hiring Greg Williams was a good move. It did change the culture here. The results were obvious in 2009, and sometimes we get too scientific. In the final analysis, it's all about players. Jim Mora said it best. He said, when I was in New Orleans, I was a defensive genius and an offensive idiot. When I was in Indianapolis, I was an offensive genius and a defensive idiot. It's about players. Greg Williams didn't have the players this past year to make plays. So no matter what he did, he wasn't going to succeed. That said, the fourth quarter in San Francisco, he was at fault based upon what he put his players in the game to do and the defenses he called. That's one instance. It turned out to be a big one, but still, if a player could make a play, it would not have mattered. They could not. Greg Williams got out immediately. He's in St. Louis. Don't be surprised if you see the Rams make a play at Marcus Colston, who Greg Williams knows very well and likes very much, for a team in the Rams that very badly needs a wide receiver. Keep that in mind too. Bottom line, good move by the Saints to bring in Greg Williams. Good move by the Saints to bring in Steve Spagnuolo. Thank you, Greg Williams. Best of luck to you in St. Louis. Time now for our Marvelous Minute. And Marvin LeBlanc is out today, but we can tell you that if you go to marvinleblanc.com/TV, you'll get all the inspiration you're seeking anytime. Positive thoughts about life, outstanding author, great book, Come Hell or High Water, all about Katrina. Marvin LeBlanc, the marvelous one, is the man to check out. We miss him here today, don't we, guys? Right? We're missing him. We're missing him.
You're buddy.
But it's great. We'll get him back next week. When we return in just a moment, we'll turn our attention to the guys in Creole Blue, the New Orleans Hornets, and where they are right now, and our take on that as Sports NOLA TV continues from TGI Fridays on Veterans Boulevard in Metairie. Visit sportsNOLA.com to check out our new feature, Ask Sports NOLA. Send us your questions about the local sports scene either through the website, our Facebook page, or on Twitter @SportsNOLA. We'll answer selected questions on the site each Wednesday, and each week in January, one lucky submission will win a family 4-pack of tickets to the Advance Auto Parts Monster Jam on January 28th in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. But you can only win by sending in your questions now for Ask Sports NOLA. Ken Trahan, TGI Fridays, 3330 Veterans in North Holland in Metairie. Glad you've joined us. The New Orleans Hornets, well, it's been rough. They've lost 7 straight games, 13 of 14, struggle to score points, wonder when their best player is ever going to play, and they're at home against the traditionally tough San Antonio Spurs tonight. It's been a rough go for the Hornets, and Brian, as you look at this basketball team, some of the recent results, look at the number of points they score. 84-77 lost to Portland, lose 93-87 at Memphis. And as you continue to look at them, 88 points in a loss to Houston, 81 points in a loss to Dallas. Common denominator, this team cannot score. They don't score 90 points in any of these defeats, and that's commonplace for this punchless basketball team.
It really is, Kenny, and the thing that has developed over the short period already is that even when they've been close, they don't have a go-to guy. The one that you would consider the go-to guy is nursing a knee bruise right now, Eric Gordon on the bench. So they don't have, even when they've been close at Houston against Dallas without Nowitzki, they just haven't had that go-to guy. And they're lacking that right now. And
Brett, you see this team all the time, as I do covering most of the games, and they just don't have any punch. Xavier Henry may be coming back to play tonight, but what is he going to bring? And then Eric Gordon is a big mystery in terms of both the injury, the severity of it, and when he's going to play.
Right, Gordon has played in 2 games, and in those 2 games he's averaged 21 points. So the guy, clearly can score. He demands a double team, especially in crunch time. And this is what we're seeing. The good news about those scores that you just showed was that the Hornets are playing well defensively, especially since Ariza has come back. All of their losses have been single-digit losses, including 2 two-point losses in a row. So they're playing well enough defensively to get to the end game situation where you need your closers to come through. They have no closers right now. Their leading scorer, Jarrett Jack, averages 16 points a game, and it seems like he feels like he has to do it all himself at the end. Whereas last year they had 2 guys in Paul and West that were averaging, I think, better than 16 points a game. And so, and of course, Chris Paul could get open shots for anybody because he knew how to run the floor.
Yeah, no greater illustration than what you're talking about than the game against the Houston Rockets when they really look like they're going to win the game, and their game-ending shot comes from Marco Bellinelli. Torrance?
Yes. Here's a team, kind of remind you of the Saints defense. Just don't have much talent. Good players, you know, but we don't have great players. We don't have anyone out there that can make everybody else better on the court. Until they get that, we're going to keep having these struggles. The one thing that we do have, we play great defense. Like I said, we're not giving up a lot of points, but the one thing they're going to have to get, we've got to get somebody that can make everybody better. Have to get some talent in.
Brian, I still like the trade. I still think that long term it's going to benefit them. Right now, the Hornets need to be fans of the Washington Wizards, Hornets fans, and also pull against the Minnesota Timberwolves so that those picks will be very, very good picks in what is a very deep draft.
And we haven't seen the last of the trades. The deadline is March 15th, and you're going to see some more player movement, I'm sure, between now and then. You know, Kenny, you go back to that Houston game, even in regulation, who took the last shot? Jason Smith, right? And it rimmed out. So, you know, again, I go back to even when they are in a position to make a shot, they don't have that go-to guy. They need to follow what the Saints mantra several years ago, finish strong.
Yeah, and I think it's a very good point, Brett, because game-ending situations are a lot different than the rest of the game. We know Bellinelli can make a shot occasionally. We know Smith in the pick and pop can make that 15-foot jumper. But even LeBron James struggles in those game-ending situations. It takes a special guy, and when your point guard has to carry the load in scoring, you've got a problem.
Right. You know, I think, like you said, you know, Bellinelli has had a 20-point game this year. Jason Smith has had a 17-point game this year. These are young guys with potential who don't do it consistently and can't be relied upon to come through in crunch time. But all indicators, when you talk about that trade that they did make, I think all indicators are pointing up for this team. The last time they went 18-64, they had a good draft pick. They got Chris Paul. They immediately became competitive. This year, they have a chance to get 2 good draft picks. We see huge improvements in the NBA with talented players between years 2 and 3, which is where Al-Farouq Aminu is. You know, Gordon is still a young player. If he decides to really, you know, it's hard to tell. You know, it's hard to tell what's going on with his injury and how much of that is mental and how much of that is physical at this point, because it's just been a very enigmatic situation. But you know, he's a young player who can score. Aminu has a lot of room for improvement, just a lot of upside all the way around.
Yeah, and we have to wait to see what Chris Kaman turns into with his expiring contract. That could be a negotiating piece down the road. Let's take a look at the upcoming schedule for the Hornets. We mentioned the Spurs tonight, Torrance. Then it's at Oklahoma City against maybe the best team in the West. Then Orlando, who's really good, coming to town. Then Atlanta, who's played very well despite losing Al Horford. Very tough schedule, Torrance.
Yeah, it's not going to get easier for these guys. The thing is, we have to rely on defense right now. They have to rely on their defense right now until they can get their offense, so somebody can step up and start making some shots for us, as we alluded to early, especially coming towards the end of the game, because they've been in the games, they just haven't been able to finish the game. So hopefully the defense will step up.
Yeah, no question. I think Hornets fans have to remain patient and understand where they're at right now. This is a team in transition, and it's a team that clearly is playing for the future. It's time now for our prep spotlight, and this evening we shine the light on the Riverside Rebels, one of the basketball powers in the state of Louisiana, 2-time defending 2A state champion, and nothing new for Coach Timmy Bird, who had 7 state championships at Reserve Christian before coming to Riverside. Our Jude Young profiles Riverside and asked Timmy Bird about building 2 programs into championship level teams.
Coach Bird, you have had an outstanding career on the prep level, and it's taken a lot of work to build 2 different programs. Just give people kind of an overview of what it took to be able to find a way to win on not only a state level, but a national level in prep basketball.
Well, we've had a lot of help. We've been blessed, number one. God's been really good to us, and He's provided us with a lot of opportunities. But, I've had a lot of help from my dad. We've had a lot of help from guys that have been administration. It's been a collective effort, everybody pulling in the same direction. And then not only do you have to have the school and everyone around the program pulling in the right direction, you also have to have high character kids. And I think the reason why we've been able to sustain it for so many years is because of the quality of kids that we get, not just talent-wise, but high character guys that are playing for a different purpose of just playing for themselves.
playing under Coach Bird and the type of programs that he's built over the years to be able to bring in very talented players, but yet make sure they understand the team concept and the importance of working together on and off the court as a team. Talk about how that's been for you over the years as far as the second family, your basketball teammates.
I mean, it's been great. I definitely have picked up a lot of relationships on this basketball circuit, especially with my teammates now. A lot of us been playing together since, we was in 8th grade. And, we just, this year, we knew this was going to be a special year for us. We all coming out in the same class. And, we just trying to make sure we hold on. We hold on to our season. We done been through a few bumps, but we bouncing back, and we definitely trying to win this tournament and make this one of the biggest tournaments we win this year.
In here, it's always Friday, TGI Fridays, 3330 Veterans Boulevard in Metairie. And of course, you can call 887-7788 and come check out the outstanding ambiance and food at TGI Fridays Veterans at North Holland in Metairie, courtesy of our friend Ronnie Bouvier and his outstanding job. All of our fans that appeared on the show here this evening receive tickets, 4 tickets each to Monster Jam Saturday night in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. Hey, the family 4-pack's a great deal. The event itself, non-stop action. You want some fun? Man, it doesn't get any better than Monster Jam. Yeah, these trucks going out of, here's a good taste of it for you. You want to know what you're going to be looking at if you've never been before? Get up there. Come on, baby. Get down. There you go. What a wonderful event it is. Monster Jam. Unbelievable support for this, and understandably why. If you haven't seen it, I know you'll enjoy it. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLA.com. Brian Alley Walsh, local sports. Your take, final thought about anything in particular that you want to share.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Hornets, I'd like to just spend my 30 seconds or so dealing with the Hornets. They need to continue to play hard under Monty Williams. They need to continue to try to improve. We've got a fragile fan base here in New Orleans as it is now. It's important, I think, that people continue to honor their season tickets, come to the arena, support the Hornets. That's the only way that we're going to make this a viable product. And we also need ownership in a hurry. Morris Bart is not the answer. We need a real owner.
Brett.
Okay, well, I too wanted to talk about the Hornets, a slightly different tack, but just to emphasize, I think, what the outlook has to be for people who follow and watch this team. It's easy to think when a team loses 7 games in a row and 13 out of 14 that, the sky is falling, that things are going in the wrong direction. But if you look at the roster flexibility, the financial flexibility, the promise of a new owner, the promise of high draft picks, fans are going to have to look at this team this year from a development perspective, watch the development of young players, and look forward to the off-season moves and transactions that might be made for this team to get better in a hurry, and also to follow the ownership situation. But there is a lot to be positive if you take a big picture approach with the Hornets, even though it looks pretty bad right now on the scoreboard.
Torrance.
Well, I like to talk about Curtis Johnson and Tulane. I like to see what they're going to look like coming into the spring training and all. I like to see if he's going to go into the inner city, and be able to get some recruits out of there. If he's going to get some of these locals to help his team out. So that's going to be pretty interesting this upcoming spring.
And he's already done that with a ton of local commitments from this past weekend, which you can read about at sportsNOLA.com, and he will continue to do that. College basketball, LSU and Tulane continue to make progress with local recruits to make your programs viable again. To see LSU land Malik Morgan from John Curtis, whom I saw this past weekend, he can play. Hopefully they can get Rico Gathers, whom you just saw in that piece from Riverside. Tulane, you got Lewis Dabney. He's going to be good, coming off of the knee injury. Good player. Keep going that route, create more local fan interest, and get your programs better and back into the postseason. Brian Alley Walsh, is always a pleasure. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, buddy. Always a pleasure.
Brett Martel, great having you with us.
Yeah, great to be here, too.
Torrance Small, keep up the good work.
Oh, appreciate being here, and the Prophet will have you guys answer next week.
All right, Marvin LeBlanc will be back next week as well. So will we at 6 p.m. Until then, Ken Trahan saying thanks for joining us. God bless you one and all. Rounding third and heading home. So long.